Hi everybody, and welcome to a new video. Now, as you guys saw from the title and thumbnail, here are 10 questions that people are really either afraid to ask men of God, have asked men of God, or fitting questions basically for a man of God to answer, which I find really interesting. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. I'm going to do just 10 quick questions for you guys, and hopefully that it makes a difference, in someone's life and it impacts them. So I'm going to have my best friend asking these 10 questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my knowledge or my understanding. Let's jam.
All right, so first question is, how do you know the difference between God saying wait and God saying no?
That's actually really interesting. So God saying wait, that would be that he would probably affirm a certain desire, just telling you it's for a certain time, or he would express certain character flaws that are there that still need to be worked on. In some cases, he could also express, like, I'm just trying to find a way of putting this. In some cases, you would feel as you're speaking, that okay, your motives toward this thing are incorrect. Like it's almost like someone is giving you a perspective at your words. When God says no, it could be that there's certain signs and dreams that he gives you. And then also in waiting, it could be maybe certain confirmations that he gives through different ways that he speaks. But when he says no, there will be dreams, there will be warnings, multiple warnings, multiple dreams that express that he's saying no.
Okay, second question is, what's the one sin or habit you struggled with the longest, and what finally helped you overcome it?
I think it was my flesh. I think it was my flesh. What helped me overcome it was growing in God. Was spending time with Him, was denying my flesh. I think that really helped a lot, and also renewing the mind. The things I watch, the things I listen to, it's strictly godly. And yes, I do have my times where I watch, for example, game shows and YouTubers, that do sports content or different kinds of things, but I've completely moved away from the sin of any kind of perverse content, which has completely renewed my mind.
Okay, so another question is, how do you guard your heart and mind as a man when the world pushes lust everywhere?
I think it's so important to constantly be in check. Guarding my heart and my mind is, like I said, guarding the content that I watch, guarding the things that I do, guarding myself as a person. If maybe there's certain spaces that I need to avoid, I avoid certain spaces, certain communication. I avoid having any kind of conversation, with any female, that could lead to them even feeling led on or anything like that.
Okay, and now another question is that, what boundaries did you set while dating or courting that actually helped you honor God?
So I haven't been in a relationship in 3 years, actually, guys. So I can't really answer that because the last relationship I was in was a worldly relationship. So there were a bit of different dynamics and things like that. But maybe if I were to answer from being single now, I think is making sure that no female feels led on, and constantly speaking to God, having conversations with Him on, okay, this friendship, if you don't want it, please, keep it away from me and things like that. But I think measures that could even be put in place now is, for example, going with a friend, if I were to be around someone, and it's something that requires us to be out there, like in public spaces or whatever it is, like lunches and stuff. I wouldn't agree to such things, but if there were to be something like that, I would take a friend with.
Okay, that's very interesting. And another question that I have for you is that, how do you balance chasing provision for your family versus trusting God to provide?
It's actually a dynamic I think that I'm working out at the moment, because sometimes we do get caught up in that thing of like, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. But I think what's helping me now is understanding that provision comes from God. and that he chooses the method to provide. So if it's through a job, he's going to choose. If in a season he just wants to say, hey, I'm going to provide for you through different means or ways that I want to choose, but just trusting in him, as the provider, and laying my desires down to him to say that this is what I want to do, this is what I want to achieve, this is how I want to help in the house and things like that. But your will be done, and at the time where he allows me to do those things, I'll be able to do it.
Okay. How do you handle work environments where swearing, corruption, or compromise is normal?
It's a bit uncomfortable, So at first, when I first started working, I'd completely isolate myself from people completely, So I'd be in my corner and things like that. And now I've learned that there's wisdom to these things. So if I'm in a work setting, I interact with people and speak and things like that. When you start with perverse conversations and things like that, it's very important to withdraw and things like that,
Okay. And another question is that, how do you deal with anger as a man without bottling it up or exploding?
It's a very interesting thing. I think I speak to God a lot, especially if there's something that I've been repetitively speaking about. I talk to God about it, and as I'm doing that thing, I'll tell him, God, your people are doing this, and this is how it's happening and things like that. And then, I think speaking helps a lot. Me and my best friend speak a lot, about certain things that irritate us or frustrate us. So I think openness and being expressive of what I'm going through.
Okay, not a problem. And another one is that, do godly men struggle with loneliness even when they have friends, and what helps?
To certain extents they do. I faced it, quite a few times. What helps is always keeping yourself busy, number one. Number two, sometimes taking that time, or rather balancing, so keeping yourself busy with the work that the Lord has given you and things like that. If you're in a space where you feel lonely, it's also important to enjoy those moments and understand that, it's time to rather fellowship with the Lord, or it's an opportunity that God is giving for us to fellowship with him, seek him, spend time with him. I think focusing on one's hobbies, focusing on building one's dreams. It could be reading, watching podcasts, building yourself as a person, I think would really help.
Okay, that's very interesting. And also, how do you learn to cry or be vulnerable before God without feeling less manly?
I think like I always say, I'm a lot different from people. I care less about crying in public or in front of people. If something is hurting me and the tears can't be held back, I cry. I think it's very important to understand that masculinity is not defined by, how many tears you can hold back. That's in essence breeding a monster, because if tears weren't needed for men, God would have not given us tears. But if they're there, it's a function that we as human beings need to be able to make use of to express, what we've been holding in, so I think I encourage vulnerability, and I'm always encouraging people to express themselves. I'm always open to conversation to encourage people, and I myself get emotional, and it's something that I don't hide.
Okay, that's good. So another question is that, what do you do when you feel like a failure as a husband, father, or provider?
I've never really felt like I had a season where, so I'm not a father or husband yet, but I felt like, in my early years of studying, I felt like really horrible because I couldn't contribute toward the house and things like that. But now that God has taught me better, he's taught me that seasons are different, but provision always comes from him. And, my desires should be where he is in that season, because sometimes you find you want to do something and he's saying, hey, I just want to prune this or deal with this. So, my desires must be in alignment with him, but always knowing that, before I am a person who is a provider, being put in a space to be a provider, in future and things like that, I'm a child of God. So even when I have a job, God is the one who brings provision through that job. So relying on him constantly and depending on him and trusting on him, I think, it makes quite a difference.
Okay, so that's all the questions that we had, and thank you for your response and answers.
All right, thank you so much. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Forgive me, some of the questions are a bit tough. I didn't expect them. Maybe we'll have a redo in future, but I hope it helped you guys a lot, and if you guys have any questions in the comment section down below, please do ask. I think it's very important that we understand each other as believers and that we understand this journey with the Lord. But I absolutely love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys.